Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to make this beautiful bubu dress with a snatched waistline. So if you're interested in learning this, please keep watching this video. So guys, over here I folded my fabric into four. I'm using 2.5 yards of Duchess fabric, and when I'm cutting directly on my fabric, I prefer to fold my fabric into four so as to cut the back and the front piece together to save time. So I'll be showing you how I folded this. If you look closely at the picture, you will notice that there's a joining at the front of the dress. Now at the open edge, you'll mark 1 inch, but before doing that, this is how I folded my fabric. I placed the open parts together and marked 1 inch inwards, and then the folded parts I just placed it on the line I made earlier. So you will just look closely at what I did here. You will place the folded part, which is your center back, because the back has no joining. So you will place that folded part on the line you made. Gently do this till you get to the end of your fabric. This is a fabric of 60 inches. I went ahead to use my pin to pin my fabric because I didn't want it shifting while actually working on it. So you should do the same for yours. Make sure you pin your fabric together. You don't need to rush this process, just take your time to pin your fabric. If you want your dress to come out very beautiful, just take your time and pin your fabric before cutting or before marking out anything on it. Just take your time and pin your fabric together. So now I'm done with folding and pinning my fabric, and I took my sleeve length from my center back, which is 20 inches, and marked on my fabric, which is at the very end of my fabric. I'm going to mark 3 inches as my neck width because I'm cutting directly on my fabric, and then go down by 1 inch at the very end of my sleeve for my shoulder slant, and then connect it to my neck width. So now I'm going to mark from my shoulder to bust line, which is 12 inches, and make a straight line with my ruler to the side of my fabric. Now I'll be dividing my bust circumference by 4 and also adding 4 inches to that for ease, and then made a straight line downwards. Now you're going to determine how wide you want your sleeve to look. So for me, I marked 12.5 inches and then made a line straight to the previous line I made. And also I'm just going to make a little curve around this part because I don't want any sharp edge. So you should just do the same for yours. Now I'm also going to mark my waistline, which is my shoulder to waistline, 17 inches, and then make a straight line to the side of my fabric. Now I'm going to move over to the end and over here I'll be dividing my hip circumference by 4 and also add 2 inches for ease, but I will advise you take just 1 inch for ease to give you a more defined pencil look at the end of your dress. So now I'm going to use my ruler to connect that point to my armhole area I marked earlier. So now I'm done with that, and I'm going to move over to the neck area. So I marked 3 inches as my neck width and marked 1.5 inches as my neck depth for my back pattern, which is that part on fold. Now for the front neckline, I'm just going to move the back piece aside and mark 3 inches as my neck width and 3.5 inches as my neck depth, and I'm going to make a square with that, and then just make a little curve to serve as my round neckline. So now for the slit opening at the neckline, I'm going to go down by 3.5 inches from my neck depth, my front neck depth. So guys, for the slit opening at the center front, I'm going to take my waist to knee measurement, which is 25 inches, and I'm going to come up by 3 inches because I don't want my slits to start from the knee. I want it to start above the knee, so I marked 22 inches. So the next thing I will do now is to sew my front pattern, and I'll be sewing at the 1 inch I marked earlier on. From the 22 inches I marked below my waistline to the 3.5 inches I marked below my neck depth. So I'll be joining that part. So I'm just going to head over to my sewing machine and sew that part, but before then I'm just going to cut out my pattern first before taking it to my sewing machine. So now I'm done cutting, and I'm going to sew from this point here to this other point and then come back. After making the joining at my center front, it's now time for me to work on my neckline. Now I have 2 smaller pieces here to work on my neckline. I cut out a length of 7 inches and a width of 6.5 inches for both pieces. Now the smaller fabric which is on fold is for the back piece, and then for the front piece I have 2 pieces. Now I'm going to mark 1 inch inwards, and from that line I'm going to mark my neck width, which is 3 inches, and neck depth of 3.5 inches. I'm just going to repeat the same process I did for my neckline when I was marking out my neck width and neck depth on my actual fabric. I'm going to go ahead and make a square, and from that I'm going to make a round neckline for my front pattern. On this smaller piece for my back pattern, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches as my neck depth and 3 inches as my neck width. So when I'm done with that, I'm just going to cut that part out and then place the smaller piece on my main fabric. and sew at 1/2 inch. I'm just going to sew 1/2 inch all around the neckline. I'm going to be placing it right side facing right side, just like this. I'm going to place the right side facing the right side and sew at 1/2 inch. When I'm done sewing at 1/2 inch, I'm going to make notches around the neckline. I'm going to repeat the process for the back pattern. So now I'm done sewing at 1/2 inch. I'm just going to make notches around the neckline and then sew towards the smaller piece. I'm going to open it up like this and sew towards the smaller piece, just like this, and then turn it over to the wrong side. Now I'm done with that, and I'm going to work on the shoulder. I'm going to place my fabric right side facing right side, and I'm going to use a smaller piece on the front pattern to cover up the back pattern and sew at 1/2 inch down to the end of my sleeve. So just watch closely. I'm just going to use a smaller piece on the front pattern to fold into the back pattern and sew at 1/2 inch down to the end of the sleeve, and then open it up like this. I'm also going to use my hemming gum to work on the smaller piece just to put it in place. I'm going to do that for the front and back piece. Now I'm also going to fold in this other part. I'm just going to fold in twice and sew, and also sew at 1/2 inch down to the end of my dress. Now I'm done sewing, and you can see how neat the neckline looks. And at this point I just had to wave my dress because the fabric was shredding too much. The next thing I'll do now is to use my hemming gum to glue these parts like this down to the end of the dress. I'm just going to put it under that fold, and after doing that I'm also going to hem the end of my dress by folding once and folding again. So now I'm done with all the sewing, and it's now time to fix my belt at the back of my dress. Now I have a width of 2.5 inches and a length of about 20 inches. Now this is what you do, guys. You turn your dress to the wrong side and then measure your shoulder to waist measurement. Mine is 17 inches, and you'll be dividing your waist circumference by 2, and what you have as your answer you also divide it by 2 again, and then mark that from that center line. You mark the measurement you have from the center line to the other side and mark, and also do the same for the other side. So mine is 36 inches and I divided that by 2. I had 18 inches and also went ahead to divide 18 inches by 2, and I had 9 inches. So from my center front line I marked 9 inches to the side to fix my belt. And after I was done, I had my dress looking like this. So guys, thank you so much for watching till the end of this video, and see you in my next video.